Is it a beautiful day in your neighborhood? The Times have made that a question more than a statement. New uncertainty has erupted with new war, and in this interconnected world, we are affected by it much more than we anticipate. How shall we respond? I'm not sure, but abandoning hope and losing faith are not allowed. We exist today because our ancestors kept faith and hope alive. The flame we received will not be extinguished on our watch. I am Fred Wooden, interim minister to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation and Community here in Michigan with my wonderful spouse, Wendy, but we are part of you this morning. To help us gather our spirits as well as our bodies, we have music provided by Linda Horton. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. Those of you at home who have chalices, please bring them to you, and we'll do our chalice lighting words as soon as we get the screen. Well, maybe we all know it. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to work for justice.
Good morning. I'm Katie Seifert, and I'm the Director of Music Ministries. And this morning, let's say good morning to each other, both here in the sanctuary and online. So Libby, can you pull up this grid of all of our friends on Zoom? So while she does that, there we go. First, we'll say good morning in the sanctuary, and I'll give us a count of 3 so we can make a loud sound all together. And when we say good morning, know that we're saying it to each other and to our friends online. And then, our folks online, you'll have a chance as well. So first in the sanctuary, you ready? Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Good morning! And now let's go ahead and unmute all our friends on Zoom. And on the same thing, on the count of 3, I'm going to allow you all to say good morning, and we're going to embrace the chaotic, beautiful sound that you all make together.
Is this what you're going?
Count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Good morning!
Lovely. Such a pleasure to be with all of us, because nothing better than being in communion together, because that's what church is, both online, both here. Now we'll go ahead and mute our friends on Zoom so we can join in song for our opening hymn. First, I'd like to say thank you to Linda Horton for being here to play piano and blessing us with her music. Thank you. And we do encourage applause now so that we can hear that noise that we make here and send it out to our friends online as well. And then thank you to the Teakwoods Choir who safely gathered in Linda's home to record this video for us so that we can still experience the beautiful sound of our choirs. And in lieu of Black History Month, let's start with the Black National Hymn, Anthem, Lift Every Voice. Due to COVID restrictions, we do ask that if you are in the sanctuary to please limit yourself to a hum, and if you're online, to please sing along. Here is Lift Every Voice.
Other than maybe being a little small. That was good.
Good morning, everyone. I am Marcy Bowden, your Director of Faith Formation Ministries here at Valley, UU. If you're at home, now is the time to bring the children in front of your device so they can join us for our Time for All Ages Not story today. Also, Rita has asked me to share with any of you that are in the building or maybe in the building in the next couple of weeks. We had some book donations that don't really go with our library. So there are a couple of boxes of books, bags on the floor in the library. If you would like those for your home library, feel free to go look through them. Remember, just the ones on the floor. So Reverend Wooden's message today is going to be about all the different tasks that a minister does for a congregation. And it got me thinking that really, that we all do in our professional and personal lives so many different tasks. So I invite you to join me for a little experiment. You may or may not know, in my old life I used to be a high school science teacher, so I kind of miss mixing and getting things in. Yeah, lit my fingernails on fire one time, taught me about nail polish. Yeah. So if you're sitting in the sanctuary or if you're up on Zoom, I can never remember where the camera is, that one. If you're on Zoom, I'd like you all to just take a minute or two and think to yourselves all the different things that you need to do this week. Now, need is subjective, so use that word in any way that works for you, but make a little mental list of your next 7 days. What are you going to be doing? What do you need to get done? So I'm going to think about mine. I need to interview faith formation assistant candidates, change the oil in the car, prep next week's Time for All Ages, prep the classrooms, return library books, make dinner. I probably should call my mother, buy toilet paper, call the doctor, change the chemicals in the hot tub, check on my sister, have the grandkids come for a sleepover, Oh, interview faith formation candidates. Oh, I already said that one. Okay, you getting enough time, everybody? All right. You can add to that list later if you need to, but I just want you to think about this a little bit. I have some rocks on my table, and I'm going to put them in my vase. Without breaking the vase is the goal. Pretty full. What do you think? Pretty full. Would you agree it's pretty full? Okay. But I think I can make it more full. Let's try some smaller rocks. This may get noisy. Some of them having a hard time getting down below, but you get the idea. It's a little bit more full, so there was still room, even though those big rocks were taking up all the space, right? I think there's more room. Let's go with something smaller. Some sand. Let's see how this works. I might be able to lift this. Can you see it filling up all the spaces? I think it could even take more, but we'll get the idea here, right? So if this vase represents your life, my life, our life, and the big rocks are the important things that you need to do in life, things having to do with your health, your family, your friends. The pebbles are things that matter, maybe things you have to do for work or for school. And the sand, this little tiny stuff, signifies the small stuff in your life, the tasks that have to do with material possessions and meaningless things in your life. And when I think about my list of all the things that I need to do this week, you know, changing the oil in my car and returning the library books, maybe those don't count as the big rocks in my life. They're not so important. But these little tasks can fill up our life. Imagine if I had started filling the vase with the sand first. Would there have been room for the little rocks? Would there have been any room for the big important tasks in my life? No. Do you prioritize your list? Do you look at what's important, what you need to do for your health and your family and your loved ones? Are you filling up your life with the people and activities that feed your soul and nourish your heart? So my message for you today is, if we spend too much time on the small stuff, there may not be enough time and room and energy to focus on the things that are truly important. Prioritize your big rocks first. Practice self-care. Spend quality time with the people that you love, and the rest, just pebbles and sand. They'll always find the space that they need. Namaste. Any children and teachers going to class, you can meet us over on the back patio. Thank you.
Everybody's taller than me. Good morning. I'm Mary Rothschild, your worship associate, and I want to welcome all of you to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation, a loving, welcoming community this gorgeous morning. Whatever your heritage, whoever you choose to love, however your family is structured, and however you feel difference or sameness, you are welcome here, both here in the sanctuary and on Zoom in Etherland. With this in mind, it is our great pleasure to welcome guests and visitors to our congregation, and we would love it if any of you who are in the sanctuary would find the courage to rise so as you are able, so that we can greet you more fully after the service. Are there any visitors in the sanctuary today? I don't think so. Well, if you are a visitor on Zoom, please put your name in the chat so that other Zoomers can welcome you there. In the sanctuary, well, there won't be a welcome circle because we don't have any visitors, but on Zoom, both visitors and members have access to breakout rooms following the service where you can meet others as a newcomer and ask questions if you like. If anyone in the sanctuary needs a break at some point, there is a comfort room to your right, which has speakers so you won't miss anything. Also, if anyone needs a listening ear this morning, Carl Anderson is our pastoral care associate here. Carl? Okay, good. And will be at the front of the sanctuary following the service. Melissa Bush is our pastoral care associate on Zoom. If you wish pastoral care on Zoom, you can put a message in the chat and then have a private conversation with Melissa later. Anyone needing pastoral care during the week can write an email to pastoralcare@vuu.org. Further, for those of us in the sanctuary this morning, we are reinstating the ability for you to note concerns during the time for centering by putting a rock or a piece of sea glass in the sand bowl in the niche on the right of the sanctuary. We hope our candles will come back soon. Reverend Wooden is with his family in Michigan this morning, so our service is really a 21st century one, with some of us presenting here in Chandler in the sanctuary along with congregants, and Reverend Wooden presenting in his home in Michigan with congregants from all over attending on Zoom. Technology is wonderful. My story today is how I came to VUU in 1985 and what I did that very first day, but you need some backstory to understand. I grew up in a liberal Protestant congregational church in Carnation, Washington, and went every Sunday both to church and by high school, also my youth group on Sunday nights, where we even danced after the meeting, which the evangelical church in town thought was scandalous. When I went off to college, I only went to church when I was home on vacation, and I got increasingly active in politics, the civil rights movement, anti-war demonstrations and marches, draft counseling for the Quakers, and then the new feminist movement. Progressive politics became my spiritual and social life, and I married a man who was an articulate atheist and saw religion as a force for mayhem and evil in the world, an argument that, unfortunately, can be compellingly made historically. For about 20 years on Sunday, I spent my morning at the Church of the New York Times, coffee and brunch. But I still believed in the religion of my youth and saw it actually as the bulwark of my politics. In 1985, on Thanksgiving Day, while we were all sitting in the living room reading books, waiting for the turkey that was roasting in the oven, my son Toby, who was then 14, looked up from his book and said, "Mom, would you take me to church?" Now, I'm sure I missed lots of important questions over the years that my kids asked me, but this one was a lightning bolt that even I couldn't miss. "Which church do you want to go to?" I said. "You're the one who knows churches," he said. "Well," I said, "we could go to the Unitarians. They believe what we do, but their music is terrible. Or we could go to the Congregationalists, and we mostly believe what they do, and their music is a lot better. Or I'd even consider the Episcopalians, though this diocese isn't very good on women right now." He looked at me as if I had truly lost my mind. We'll go to where we believe, he said. But their music is terrible, I said. And so that Sunday, Toby and Sasha, my younger child, and I walked into Valley Unitarian Universalist Church, as it was called then, and the kids went off to Sunday school, and I sat in the sanctuary where I recognized only two people. That year, all of the services were lay-led. I'll never forget it. The speaker was a Quaker lawyer who was defending the church workers on trial for providing sanctuary for Central Americans fleeing violence. The Reagan administration didn't want to give them asylum. Does that sound familiar? So local religious groups, including members of VUU, were driving to Tucson every day to support the men and women on trial, standing vigil outside the courtroom. Though the music was indeed terrible, it just washed over me that I was home. I had no idea that I missed a church community so much. I had no idea there were people in Phoenix who believed as I did about religion and social justice, and I had no idea who they were. I was overcome with how much I wanted to be in a congregation again, how much I missed that spiritual and religious community I had grown up in, how very much I wanted to be part of a church family again. As soon as the service was over, I asked the person next to me who I should speak to so that I could join the church. She pointed out the president of the board, kind of dubiously, and I went up to her and said I wanted to join and that I knew I could make a beginning pledge of at least $40 a month. She looked at me as if I was an alien from outer space who had somehow dropped out of the sky onto Warner Road in Chandler. "You want a pledge?" she asked, astonished. "Well, yes," I said. "If you join a church, you have to pledge to support it." My father had been, among other things, the treasurer of our congregational church, and he had taught me well. Though she tried hard to get over her amazement, she didn't really succeed, but she signed me up, shaking her head at the very idea of pledging on the first day of attending services. Today, now 37 years later, we are having the 2022 celebration of our successful pledge drive. VUU has changed over these 37 years, from our building to our budget to our name to our staff, but what hasn't changed is this loving community that strengthens us and works for a better world. We know it is our responsibility to support and fund our congregation because it is up to us, and us alone, to keep our community alive, active, and growing. I have never once regretted joining and pledging that first day, and VUU has blessed me and my family and been my family's home for all these years. I'm so glad to be with you here today to celebrate once again a successful pledge drive and, most importantly, to welcome you into worship in our community this morning. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
The offering. Boy, what a great setup, Mary. I'm so glad you put that right on the tee like a golf pro. The time that we set aside to give is powerful, and I spend time on it. It's not just, hey, if you can do something, drop it in the plate. But it's also today a time not just of giving, but of receiving. And that's important. Satisfaction is present today, mine and yours, for the work you have done on our annual pledge drive. I'm going to invite the chair of that drive, another long-term member and great leader in our congregation, Linda Horton, to tell us what a great job you did.
They said yes. Thanks to both Fred and Mary for this great introduction. I think I should just sit down and let them have done all the talking, but that's not going to happen. A few minutes ago, we celebrated Black History Month with the Black National Anthem. The opening words of that hymn can be used to celebrate more than just the pride of one group of people. We here at VUU can surely relate to phrases like, "Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, let our rejoicing rise as high as the listening skies, and let it resound loud as the rolling sea." I am proud to lead the lifting and rejoicing of our voices for the celebration of our 2022 pledge drive. The Stewardship Committee, Ann Schneider, Barbara Metz, Debbie Simpkins, Jody Freeman, Jim Horton, and I have had a really great time together working with Tricia Amato and Mark Foote to host a pledge drive that has generated almost $400,000 worth of pledges from 150 households. Now, with those of you who are in the sanctuary now who are on that group of people, please stand up so we can thank you for your work. And I'll give you a clue that Mark is already standing up because he's working in the sound booth. We also had a team of thank you note writers, to whom we also feel very grateful, and the support of Todd Serene, our administrator. Most of all, today we are celebrating the pledges of all of you that support the wonderful work and the play of VUU. You are the people who keep the ministry of this congregation thriving, who provide the leadership that makes it all work. Would you please give yourselves a big round of applause? You have seen our weekly updates that used Tricia's beautiful multi-flamed chalice to total up your pledges. These flames flared from a chalice representing UUism, and we are answering the call to keep our chalices, our lamps, if you will, trimmed and burning. In other words, to support the resources of VUU so we can fulfill our mission and ministry. Now, after Fred introduces our offering moments, our Teakwood mini choir is going to sing for us again, "Keep Your Lamps Trimmed and Burning."
Thank you, Linda Horton. I don't know of anything that you or so many other people do that doesn't work out. You are truly magical people in this community. But just because we have made it this far doesn't mean we stop. That's why we pause every week to encourage you, if you are even a pledged person, or if you're not, to add to our ongoing work, to our ongoing mission. So I'm going to invite you to contribute today. If you're in the sanctuary, the ushers will begin to pass the plate in a few moments during that wonderful song. If you are joining us remotely, you may click or text or email according to the information you see on the screen. Every bit of it matters because every one of you matters. Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's hear that wonderful music as we finish our time of offering.
Keep your lamps trimmed and burning. Keep your lamps trimmed and burning. Keep your lamps trimmed and burning. The
couple of weeks ago, I held up my iPad from here in Michigan to show you the people I could see from my remote location. I have it in front of me now, but I'm looking and taking note of people like Joel Sandus, and Margaret Stewart and Terry Guest and Jim Bennett. But something, if I go past so many names because I have to push my screen from side to side, I see names, but I don't see as many pictures. I really hope some of you will put up a picture so that not just me, but the people in the sanctuary and the people on Zoom can have a face to go with a name. Pictures say so much. For example, I'm going to hold up a pair of pictures from long ago. Can you see these pictures? Yep, that's my wife, and Wendy, and she's there with our older son, who is Aaron, who is now almost, oh my gosh, what is he, almost 38 years old. He's a good Cub Scout right there. No, there, right there. And of course, that one would be our youngest, that's Steve, who is barely older than his son now. I like being able to see them. And I'm hoping that you will take the time to put a picture on your Zoom feed so that I or others will be able to see you in the future. We speak of being seen now as being an important function of our work for justice. To see someone as they are, to see someone at all, so that we are none of us like Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. But that means being willing to be seen, and to be seen perhaps not always at your chosen best. It means trusting that whichever person you offer will be received, seen, welcomed. This time of centering is to remind us that we all come stumbling into the world. We all stumble through it. We all have moments when we don't feel quite as wonderful or as attractive or as successful or as strong as we would like. It's hard to show yourself that. But this community, all spiritual communities, if they're honest, is about welcoming that person as well. Not just the one that looks good, but the one that doesn't look as good or feel as good. I hope that you will show yourselves, not only on Zoom, but in person, to risk being seen as a mere human being. If this is peculiar talk for a prayer, as I point toward Ukraine and the other armed conflicts that we are not mentioning, it is the failure of people in power to see the people they are hurting, a willful blindness that allows that violence to go on. Choose to be seen. Choose to put your face and your person in front of everyone. Risk being human. I think in the end, that may be the only way we can save ourselves from all that we have done to each other over all these centuries. I want to see you. I know you see me. I want to see you. Whoever you are, however you are, I want to see you. With those words, those hopes, those fears that we bring, we now gather our minds and souls and hearts and allow music to put that where it belongs. Linda? Thank you, Linda. I have to put my picture back on the mantelpiece. For so many other pictures are in residence. I miss being with you. And I will be coming back to you to be there in person for the next 2 Sundays. Of course, this past week, we lived through that constant reminder that life is what happens to us while we're making other plans. What I wanted to say to you today, I am going to say, but it has to be done in the context of a world that has been changed quite quickly by the invasion of Ukraine, which has rattled windows from Kiev and Kharkiv and Lviv all the way to Chandler and Phoenix, adding more uncertainty and instability to an already uncertain and unstable world. We should not be surprised, and yet we are. Now, there are experts on every channel and every news feed opining and predicting, but no one knows exactly what the outcome will be. And that's why we feel anxious. We don't know what's coming. The era of global mutual restraint is probably over. If we were clear-eyed and honest to ourselves, we probably could have seen this coming. Everything else was changing before this changed. The unrestrained capitalism that began in the 1980s was followed by the unleashed partisanship that began in the 1990s, which fueled the rise of religious fanaticism in the 2000s and the resurgent populism of the 2010s. Did we really think that other things would remain stable when everything else had changed? Social and political norms have become fungible and finally laughable as a cynical realism has settled in places that believes in the end power is all that matters, and whatever it takes to get it justifies getting it no matter how. We would be reasonable to be discouraged. I personally would not be surprised to see the old Cold War divisions come back in revised form. And in some perverse sense, that would make us stable, but only in a regressive way. People like simple binary choices. Us, not them. Me, not you. Complexity is hard. Of course, none of this matters to the people in Ukraine right now, and nothing we can do can stop Russia from exerting its will right now. So I asked myself, what is it we can do, should do? And one of the things that came to mind was that we can be honest witnesses, to remember quite clearly what we heard and saw, to remember what we felt and why, and to tell the truth to those who will not witness this, my grandson, for example. Those who write the history will write it to their advantage. It's only those who were there who can tell the truth up close and personal. More importantly, we must resist the tide of dread and despair, the fear and the anger that fuels the autocrats around us. Fear is their food. Anger is their drink. The more we fear, the more we rage, the stronger they become. Our duty in such times is to seek spiritual health and strength. For how far this contagion of fear and anger spreads will depend very much on how well we and others resist it, how well we offer a more comprehensive, more approachable, more wholesome alternative. So ironically, our task is no different than it ever was. We must do it now with greater urgency and conviction to offer a mission and a vision of a world that does not need, does not welcome, and in fact, will not accept fear and anger as the way we do business. With that said, couched in that caution, I will talk about what I plan to talk about. It may seem horribly trivial by comparison, but it isn't. As most of you know, our life upset our plans back in December, my personal plans, when my spouse, Wendy, whom you saw waving at the beginning, was diagnosed with breast cancer. As she is best treated back here in Michigan, I've been going back and forth alone, rather than we being together as we were with you last year. And you know that while we love Michigan, we love Arizona in winter even more. So that's quite a loss. You've been exceedingly supportive of this on our part, giving me leave to come and go to care for my spouse and for myself, realizing that the personal is spiritual as well as political, and that caring for self and spouse are essential to any pastor caring for a church or a congregation. Now, you might remember that was part of my message 2 weeks ago, but I think you've understood this even before it happened. And what a genuine gift that is to Wendy and me. How fortunate I am to be able to be here in Michigan and be with you and enjoy your support. Now, just like wondering what we can do in America for Ukraine, when I'm back here in Michigan, there is little I can do for Wendy that will ease her discomfort. She still has to go through the chemotherapy. It's a solitary burden. What I can do, and very willingly, and is very similar to what I've just spoken about, is to take care of the things she needs done so she can bear the challenges she needs to bear. When Wendy was recovering from bunion surgery a few years ago, I started this task for the first time. Mind, we've always shared the household tasks, though not always equally. My work has been the primary paycheck for most of our years, taking more time than hers. Still, I was the primary cook for 25 years, the keeper of the vacuum cleaner and the master of the ironing board. When Wendy was off her feet for bunion surgery, I took on cleaning bathrooms and doing the laundry, though I must admit, I needed great supervision when it came to doing the laundry, when it came to choosing cycles and temperatures and what goes where and what goes in the dryer and what needs to be hung up. It was while doing this a few years ago, and now again, that I remembered thinking how much of clergy life is very similar to housekeeping. Some might even say it's like housewifery itself. I noticed this, though, actually a few years before, when I read an article about a woman preparing for the Episcopal priesthood back when it was brand new. And the fellow students around her, all of the men, asked how she felt about the task of serving the Eucharist and doing baptisms and all those lofty sacraments. And she replied that it was not hard or difficult at all. She's been cooking supper for years for her family, and she's bathed more than a baby or two. And a light bulb went off in my head then, that maybe much of clergy life is housekeeping. What is worship but serving Sunday dinner for the soul? It has to be nourishing and satisfying, well balanced. And you can be sure that from time to time you'll get the same food again. And no matter how good I cook it, I have to do it again 7 days later. And no matter how ill it is to taste, it will still be nourishing. Dedications are just childcare, but childcare is nothing small. It is something of great spiritual and moral value. Most meetings I go to are about taking care of the institution, prosaic tasks that are nonetheless essential to helping all of us sustain this community. I have ironed church tablecloths, washed church dishes. I have, I'm looking here at the list I made for myself, shoveled snow from more than one church step. I've wiped up spills. I've purchased provisions. I've taken out the trash, fixed leaky toilets, washed dirty toilets, and more in every church I have served. None of those skills, by the way, were taught us in seminary. We got lofty ideas and theories, but no one taught us how to operate a ditto machine or a mimeograph. And when they came along, no one taught us how to fix a clogged Xerox machine or set up a computer or install a modem or read balance sheets or file files. These are things we all had to learn on our own. That's just like housekeeping. There is no school for housekeeping. You pick it up as you go. Most of my time over the years has not been grand acts of preaching or doing something noble in public, but small private acts of keeping things going, housekeeping. Someday I may write a book called The Ministry of Housekeeping, but today I want to observe that my work, the work of all clergy, like any housewife, if we call them that, involves a range of tasks and skills that makes us among the few generalists left in the world. Most people now have jobs where they can focus on this or that, and they can let other things go. Being able to focus is a great gift. The fabled Vince Lombardi famously said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. But you can only say that if someone else is cleaning up the locker room. Inspiring words they are, but then you have to realize that the sum total of our former president was winning is everything, and now we know exactly why we are where we are. Long ago, I read a comment by the tycoon Malcolm Forbes, who said, getting rich isn't hard, you just have to make sure that's the only thing you do. And I wondered, who is doing this man's laundry? Who is running this man's vacuum cleaner? And I mean, before he got rich. What we clergy face is maintaining the household of faith. We have to ask, who's keeping house? Sure, we would love to get this program going or focus on worship planning. But like it or not, the pledge campaign will always need us to pitch in. The youth group always seems to be floundering in every church. The music director is part-time, so we have to take that into account. There's the leak in the sanctuary or in the admin building, which we in fact did have earlier, if you don't forget. And all of these are on a minister's plate in some way, whether we do them or not. We are thinking about them and wondering how to get it done. There is a widely shared want ad for a minister that catches this omnibus quality to ministry. It's humorous and satirical, but you get the idea. I've edited it, so it's longer. I'm trying to save a minute or two. The want ad reads like this. Wanted, a pastor who will be 29 years old with 40 years experience, will preach 10-minute sermons that condemn sin, but never hurt anyone's feelings, who works from 8 a.m. until midnight and be a model of family devotion. He or she never misses meetings of any parish organization, will evangelize the unchurched, have a burning desire to work with teenagers, and is devoted to our senior citizens. This person will make 15 home visits a day, be in the office Monday through Friday for those who need it, will make $1,000 a week, drive a car that reflects well on the church, buy and read 10 books every month, and pledge $500 every week. if not literally true. There is truth in it. Congregations are households and have many needs. We knew this job was dangerous when we took it, but many of us did not know it never stops. And no minister can do them all well. None of us have every skill that a congregation requires. Some of us can preach up a storm, but we may forget a meeting. That would be me. There are some who are great with kids, but stumble with elders. Some who can organize anything, but put people to sleep on Sunday. Yet all of it must be done. I've mentioned the metaphor of the spinning plates before. We use it a lot among clergy. The other metaphor is my title, that we are dancing as fast as we can, because no matter how well something is done today, there's another Sunday, 7 days later. There's a next meeting, a next report, a next bill to be paid, a next loss to be soothed, an anger to be assuaged, a next financial report that must be understood. Did you know that about a third of the current clergy in America have considered leaving the work in the past 2 years because of the pandemic? That was in the Washington Post last December. Yes, the pandemic was instrumental in making that an issue, but it wasn't the thing that actually did it. It was the last straw on the camel's back of most clergy, who already were doing a lot, and then to learn how to run Zoom meetings and how to do virtual worship and how to do virtual pastoring. Many of us, if we haven't retired, have wondered whether we'd be better off doing an easier job. Now, few have served as long as I have, and that's helped me. I'm used to this. And as you prepare to select a new minister, keep in mind that your next minister will not be as used to this as I am. May have minor children as well as a spouse. And given those priorities I talked about a week or two ago, making sure that they can serve those priorities is your job. I believe you and every congregation must rethink what ministers do. Are they here to serve you as a servant would, or to be your housewife? Or are they here to equip you to serve each other and the world? I'm now going to quote your least favorite person, the Apostle Paul, who in his letter to the Ephesians, a letter he may probably not have written himself, but was in his spirit. And he was counseling that community, very small, on how to be a good community. And he said, some will be apostles, and some will be prophets, and some evangelists, some pastors and teachers. And your job is to equip the saints for the work of ministry. In other words, he was saying we all do different things, and the job of the community is to equip each other to do those different jobs well. And that is the role of your clergy person, to equip the saints. That would be you. These usual roles of the minister that we have, preacher, pastor, leader, they are roles you play as well and can do more and better than we can. The only job we can do is to help you do those jobs better. In a sense, every minister follows the steps of Pope Gregory the Great, and you didn't think you were going to get a quote from Pope Gregory the Great. I'm just about willing to bet. He signed all of his correspondences, Servus Servorum, which is Latin for servant of the servants. We are ministers to ministers. We clergy exist to equip you, the saints, with the gifts of ministry, and do so by using our own gifts, not by meeting your expectations of being served. We make you reach for your ministry. And when we do that job well, you thrive. Because in the end, you are responsible for the mission, not the minister. Their responsibility, our responsibility, is to inspire you, educate you, counsel you, comfort you, sometimes poke you toward that gift of ministry we all have. The writer Frederick Buechner deserves to be quoted again when he said, "The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet." Do you know where that is? Most of us don't. Your minister has that job to help you find out where your deep gladness lies, to help put you in a place where you can feed the world's deep hunger with your gladness. And that becomes even more important right now, because it is the absence of deep gladness that creates wars, that perpetuates hate, that permits division. You need to be a community of deep gladness, gladness in the gifts you have, because they have found a place to serve a hunger that needs to be fed. How will you know you have the right minister? Not when you choose that person. You will know it when your deep gladness has found a place to thrive in this community and the world around you. And that will be a moment when you realize you have become the ministers you were intended to be. And at that moment, you will dance together in harmony, in circles, together, making a music that will feed the hunger of the world. Thank you for letting me be with you this morning from a distance too far. I'm grateful for your patience and kindness. And I now ask my colleague in music ministry, Katie Seifert, to lead us in our closing music.
Thank you, Reverend Fred. Let's join together in our closing hymn perfectly. Let it be a dance through the good times and the bad. Let it be a dance, you and me doing it together.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dazzling song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind, let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round and round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Here's what every clergy person wants to be able to say to you, ancient words from the prophet Isaiah. The Spirit has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, release to the prisoners, to comfort those who mourn, to give them a garland instead of ashes, an oil of gladness instead of mourning, the mantle of praise instead of a faint spirit. They shall build up the ancient ruins, shall raise up the former devastations. You shall be named ministers of our God. That's what we wish for you, to be ministers of peace and hope. And now, with that longing in mind, I ask Mary Rothschild to bring our worship to a close by extinguishing the chalice.
Please join me in saying our words to extinguish the chalice. Though we extinguish this chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. As we say goodbye to each other, dear friends, I wish you all a good week ahead. Remember to side with love, work for peace, and hold the people of Ukraine in your hearts and the light. Linda is going to give us traveling music, and we can all speak outside or in Zoom in your breakout room. Go in peace.